Welcome to another episode of Talking Fast, a Gilmore Girls podcast. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Alexis.
And we're two longtime fans of the show, excited to rewatch and recap it along the way.
All right. Back to our episode recaps. We are kicking things off for the second half of season 2 with episode 12, Richard in Stars Hollow. Newly retired Richard is driving Emily crazy, so Lorelai agrees to take her father for a day in Stars Hollow, where he annoys both Lorelai and Rory.
Quite an episode. I thought it was very parallel to the Emily in Wonderland episode of season 1.
I liked that they directly referenced that in the title alone and kind of in the format of the episode as well. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed this episode in a lot of ways. It also grated my nerves in a lot of ways, but I think we'll have a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to get back into like episode recaps.
Yeah, me too. And as we're getting started, don't forget to rate and review and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're having a lot of fun over on TikTok with our supernatural castings, I guess, what the Gilmore Girls people would be. So
yeah, if you skipped our mid-season recap, we had some hypothetical questions that really inspired us, and we're kind of going from there. So we're assigning supplementary reading and listening material for you on our social media accounts.
Don't worry, it doesn't take long, but you will be quizzed.
Yeah, pop quiz. Is that not what the Talking Fast segment is? Like,
that's
basically
true.
Our own pop quiz. I never really thought of it that way, but
we did get a couple Talking Fast from listeners after we mentioned that in our last episode. Thank you. It's great to hear your voices, and
it's brave.
You all did well. I think that it really shows my particular downfall of getting bogged down by the weeds of the details. But yeah, I think y'all did very well. Thanks.
Maybe we'll figure out a way to incorporate those.
Yeah.
Get some space for those. It can be hard when we usually go over an hour for an episode alone. So maybe we could fit them in our final or a supplementary episode or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So should we do our Talking Fast for this episode?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay. Go.
Richard is retired and he is driving Emily a little insane. She is like being watched by him always, which is pretty funny. She sends him off to Stars Hollow for a day where he starts to annoy Lorelai and Rory by kind of butting into their lives and overstepping. Meanwhile, Dean also has finished the car, which I totally forgot about. Also, Paris is on investigative journalism kind of thing. Movies are banned at the Stars Hollow video. Jess plans another prank, and Kirk, of course, works at the video store.
Okay, nice. That was good.
Speaking of the weeds, I just started to just really freestyle there with some random details.
Well, you've gotten all the main points in, so that's commendable.
Mm-hmm. Broad brushstrokes version, though. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's see how it goes.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So we start off with a mausoleum question, which is always fun. And then Richard is bugging Emily, asking how many cups of coffee she drinks. So she pawns Richard off onto Lorelai, and Richard criticizes everything Lorelai does in Stars Hollow. Meanwhile, Paris wants to unearth the seedy underbelly of Stars Hollow and for a story for the Franklin, and she follows Rory to Stars Hollow, and Rory is the face of censorship, and then there's a big fight, and oh gosh. I think I start just getting excited about words and spinning words and stuff, and then I just get distracted.
Yeah, what's there not to like?
Yeah. Well, should we slow down and go through our episode?
Yes.
Closely.
Yeah.
I actually have my gazebo moment in the opening scene.
Stop. Me too.
I wondered if that would happen because it was it's perfect Emily humor. So we're at Friday night dinner and everybody comes in and exchanges I'm fine. And then Emily starts asking these strange, probing questions about whether Lorelai is seeing anybody, whether she realistically thinks she'll ever get married. At first, I didn't remember where this was going, and I thought it was like Emily was going to be setting her up with somebody again. But then she says that she has recently been to the family mausoleum and noticed that they're running out of space. So she wants to know like whether they're going to have to plan for a partner for Lorelai or if there's just room for Lorelai and Rory. Which I thought was weird because what if Rory gets married, and has kids? Like somebody's going to have to be moved at some point.
Yeah. Like Lorelai said, you never know what it's going to be with Emily.
Yeah.
And I did not remember the mausoleum bit at all. So I was having a lot of fun listening to them. Mm-hmm. Like, if you do meet someone someday, I don't know where to put them. It's just such a funny way to describe it. And then they're debating about who to put out if they get an annex. And they're, listing different people. They say Aunt Cecile. And there's a few running jokes about that, her terrible jokes, how she says knock knock jokes, but then doesn't know how to format that joke. And then it's just been like Emily, Lorelai, and Rory, and Richard comes home. Classic kind of fashion of a humorous scene. He doesn't know anything that's been said to this point. So he says, oh, yeah, the mausoleum and annex, okay. I vote for Cecile. Horrible woman, terrible jokes. And just like the comedic timing on everyone's part in the scene, the chemistry between all of them, Rory saying this is a cold, cold family at the end. It was just like a perfect little capsule of like what a cold open scene is,
Yeah.
I thought it was perfect.
Rory's
just
like
a little family moment.
Her look of disgust. Yeah. This was the perfect gazebo moment because this episode does have some other pretty good moments. But a lot of it is also just kind of like sad in a way, I guess,
Or heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was a great opening. So after this cold opening, we still are at Friday night dinner and we get a bit of information, some context about what's been going on for Richard and Emily. And so Lorelai has asked Richard how retirement is going. And it sounds like he has just kind of been following Emily around, noticing things about her. And Lorelai picks up on the fact that Emily is just kind of like avoiding eye contact. And she just doesn't look very happy about all this. But Richard seems to be okay at this point. He seems kind of excited. He takes Rory off to look at some books. I wrote down Flaubert. I'm not sure that I spelled it right, and I don't know what that is. I should have looked it up.
It's French, it's like Flaubert, even though you don't say the ert.
Yeah, I wrote Flobert. Flaubert.
Mm-hmm. It's somebody that I've heard of but have not read before. But he's got a first edition, so they're very like book nerding out. They leave the table, making room for Lorelai to kind of ask Emily about how she's been like flinching through this whole conversation about Richard's retirement. I actually felt like this was a rather lovely scene between the two of them where though Lorelai has to pry a little bit, then Emily opens up and leans on her and Lorelai gives her some advice, which we do not often see yet. That's more of like a Rory Lorelai thing. So I feel like their relationship is continuing to evolve. And Lorelai's advice here is good. She's saying you just need to find a new routine, a rhythm. And they do not achieve that within this episode. But overall, I think it's very sound advice coming from Lorelai, who's never really experienced anything like that either. So I don't know. I thought it was wise of her.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a similar feeling to having a kid suddenly on summer break or something. Except then you're responsible for them. It was a good sentiment. Too bad it didn't work out.
Moving forward, the next day or, a day close in the future, we open up at Chilton with Rory and Paris and a Franklin meeting. And things are... tension is running high here because Paris has heard about this Oppenheimer Prize for a student newspaper. And she is very intent, we should say, on winning this. She wants to make the other people feel the pain.
Yeah. It's one of her best lines. I want to be those people. I want to cause that pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think Madeline or Louise says, like, who cares? It's not like the prize is a lifetime of rice-a-roni, which I thought would be, a great prize. And this scene also made me think about the Rory and Paris dynamic at the newspaper. Again, we talked about this a bit before. And here I was feeling like, Paris is really kind of intimidating them, really like lecturing them, kind of trying to scare them into performing well. Mm-hmm. And then Rory sort of follows this up by saying, okay, like we have a week, let's take time to brainstorm a theme, sort of more calm and collected about it. And it made me think of them as like, rather than saying Rory is the better editor, though you could make that argument, I was also like, there's space here to make a claim for like a team dynamic between the two of them, like good cop, bad cop in a sense. Like, I know it happens later at Yale, but I thought this was another potential model for the way, if they were co-editors or had like a little publishing house in an alternate universe, like I could see how them working together would make both of them better at what they do,
Yeah, that's so cool. I'm just getting a vision of them running a publishing house, and Paris would be the one who makes all the deals and like makes sure that everybody's getting the most money and all of that. And then Rory's the one who actually coordinates people because she is definitely showing her leadership skills here.
Yeah. It's like the, like Paris could be like the director of the press and Rory could be like the editor-in-chief in a sense. And it would probably take Paris a while to learn to like delegate and allow Rory to have that functioning authority, but I think it could be cool. They could publish Jess's book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I bet after college, like once they've kind of passed that hurdle and learned that kind of stuff about themselves, they'd be able to work better as a team without having the Paris kind of always pushing to be the one on top.
Yeah.
Which, she obviously is here.
That's a lifelong struggle for her.
After this, we're back at the Gilmore's house, and Emily is kind of getting ready for her day. She's planning out all the things she needs to do, and she's drinking a cup of coffee. And Richard comes in and asks her, is this the same cup of coffee that she had earlier? She says, no, it's a new cup. And he makes the astute observation that, she has 3 cups of coffee in the morning, which is fine as an observation. But then he sits down and he's like, it's an awful lot of coffee to have in the morning. And you can tell that this has been happening. Like, this isn't the first time he's made an observation coupled with a judgment. And Emily is just kind of going out of her mind. So she eventually finds a solution for the day, which is sending Richard to the club, which I'm kind of surprised that he hadn't already been doing. I thought that was kind of what retired people of their means do. Just go and like play bridge or something at the club. I don't know. Right.
His comment later on about like, how has it come to this? Like, I'm just, at the club at 3 p.m. on a weekday, makes me think perhaps he'd been either consciously or subconsciously resisting doing that activity to kind of like accept that this is his fate for the foreseeable future. But I agree, like it seems like an environment he would enjoy. But instead he's like offering to go along to the dry cleaners, her DAR meeting, her symphony luncheon. And Emily is just like, I need some space.
Yeah.
And she shoos him out the door and she's like, I need more coffee now. And it really made me think that she's a Gilmore girl, like Lorelai and Rory are the coffee drinkers that everyone knows of. But here we find that it runs deeper to Emily as well.
It's in the blood. She just drinks it out of a fancier cup.
Yeah, like a China tea cup it looked like.
Probably has like French roast rather than Folgers or something.
Yeah. So later that same day, we pick up with Rory and Lorelai that night at the Stars Hollow video store. And I couldn't really make sense of what the purpose of the scene was until it comes up again later on in the episode. But at this point, it just kind of seems like a fun little rambling visit for them picking out like a marathon of movies. They reference a ton of titles that I don't know many of them.
One of them is my Rory's bookshelf, Harold and Maude, which is a weird movie. I think it's from the 70s maybe, but it's one of my favorite movies, and for some strange reason my sister and I watched it a lot in high school. But it's a love story, I suppose. The main male character is maybe 20-ish or so, and he's got a morbid mind. The movie starts out with him, supposedly he's been finding all sorts of different ways to fake his death and freak out his family, and so it just goes through all these weird scenes of him faking his death, like in pretty gruesome ways. And then he meets this woman who's probably about 80 or so, and at a funeral, I think, and she's like a ray of sunshine and like the opposite of him, and they fall in love and they have this love story. And it's a weird movie, but it's really good.
Sounds like it.
It's got a lot of themes about like life and how to live life to the fullest and that kind of stuff. Just with a kind of grim, macabre background.
It's all about balance.
Yeah. I love that movie.
Light and dark. Well, nice. Did they pick that one in the end or no?
I don't think so. I don't remember what they actually did pick.
As they are selecting, though, Rory walks by these two young boys, and they're looking at a movie called Call Girls, and it has like a picture of a naked lady on the front, basically. And Rory observes this and tells it to Kirk later on. And Kirk says, "Oh, let me go look at that." Like, implying, yeah, he wants to go. He says, "Is it a blonde first, or is she a blonde?" And I'm like, okay, very masculine sexual energy going on here. But I mean, I also have to mention, I love, of course, the running joke that Kirk is the employee at this video store that we've never seen before. The front of the set, like the front of the store they showed, looked very Stars Hollow, but then on the inside, it did not. This was like a very random set. And then later on, when they show it again, it seemed like the set had changed too. It was odd, but it felt very much like, oh, we need a video store for this plot line in this one episode, and you're never going to see it again.
Yeah. Yeah, which is strange. I feel like a video store in Stars Hollow should be a staple because they have movie nights all the time. But
maybe we will see it again. I don't know.
I don't remember it.
And apparently Dean's dad has a stereo shop a couple blocks away. Like, where is that?
Yeah.
How is that business functioning? Like, only selling stereo? I don't know.
Yeah, is it like a Radio Shack type thing?
Must be.
Yeah, maybe it is. But I thought it was kind of, I don't know, Rory bringing this up to Kirk, I think it had the best intentions, and probably if you were bringing this up to a sensible employee, it would be a good thing to do, like maybe have things with more risque covers on higher shelves. That makes a lot of sense to me. Or also have things like in sections based off of their rating. That makes a lot of sense to me. You don't need to have them like sectioned off by a curtain, but at least then if you see kids over in the R-rated movies, you can be like, get out of there, you know. But at the same time, I don't know, she could have just picked it up and moved it. It didn't seem like there was organization there. I don't know. I don't think I am critiquing her. I think I agree with what she did. But obviously Kirk and Taylor took it a little bit out of control.
Yeah. But before we get to that part of the storyline, the other major thing that happens in the scene is when Lorelai steps out to take a phone call, and Emily is on the phone in desperation. Like, I don't think I've seen her with such manic energy before. Maybe like when she was trying to bring out all the stuff for Trix's visit.
Oh, yeah.
That was pretty wild. But she's like basically saying the thing that like the final straw for her was Richard saying he's going to join her water aerobics class and he's bought swim trunks, which is hilarious. And she's like, Lorelai, if you don't help me, I'll take you out with me. I don't know. She's like threatening her. She's saying, you owe me. I helped pay for Rory and for the loan. And I know we had like the co-signing of the loan. I mean, and last time we like debated like, oh, would she have held that over her? Will she moving forward, etc. And she's kind of doing that here, but it's so like it's not like really serious. Like, I think it's like the way they play it is like she's just been driven to this point by Richard. I think was pretty funny. And she immediately kind of is like, I would do anything for a day of peace. And once Lorelai agrees, she's like, you don't know how much I appreciate this. It's very like high and low energy going on here. And I don't know. I thought it was a good scene.
Yeah, it was the perfect example of like calling in favors. Because yeah, I definitely don't think she was seriously calling them in. Like, she wouldn't take Chilton away if Lorelai didn't take Richard for a day, or she wouldn't like walk back her co-signing of the loan. It was just like she was looking for anything to convince her, which is, it's kind of sad. I kind of wish that she had just talked to Richard bluntly about like, you know, you need to find some of your own friends now. Find your own activities to do. I don't know.
Yeah, but that has to happen next episode, you know. Yeah. First, we need some shenanigans.
That's true. So we wake up the next morning, and right off the bat, I have my Lorelai's closet for Lorelai's outfit, just because it's not something I really like, but it's something that I just like is so connected with Lorelai in my mind. And it's a purple kind of lilac dress shirt with a ruffled bib on the front. And it definitely seems like something that is meant to be worn under a jacket that closes, and then like the ruffles would just pop out or something, not left on its own, because then it just looks random. But it is very Lorelai-ish, like business and frilly at the same time, I guess, and showy. She's attempting to get Rory to stay at home and to skip school because Lorelai is afraid to be alone with her father for a whole day, which, as we see, like, she has reason to be worried about it, I think. But Richard arrives, and it's a very awkward greeting. Rory takes off for school, of course, and then Richard and Lorelai just kind of sit there. Eventually, they start reading the paper. And it's just kind of weird. It's like, I don't know, there's a difference between having, like, visiting somebody, especially when it's planned, like a couple-day visit or something, and usually you have, like, activities planned, or you take the day off of work. But this just, like, Lorelai babysitting Richard for a day is just so painful.
I feel like it was very transparent what Lorelai was doing, and Richard brings that up at the end of the episode, and I'm almost surprised that he starts off the day like rather cordial and in a good mood, because I would be annoyed if I was like my wife and my daughter kind of like having me be babysat essentially as this newly retired person. I thought it did get off to a good start, though. After, like, the awkward greeting, Richard says, like, what would you normally do? Let's just go about your day. So she's like, I guess I'd read the paper, and they split it up based on, like, the sections they both want to read, and they sit there, and I thought it was, like, very, like, sweet and companionable. And it's like, oh, maybe this will go fine. Maybe they can kind of just coexist about the day. And they go to Luke's, and it's still going kind of well. Like, Richard is telling her, a story about like a horrible diner that he loved and misses from his college days. It's so like total dad reminiscing. Like they just love to be able to tell you all about their memories, you know? So it's like, hey, if this is the day, like it's going to go fine. And then with the whole grapefruit is brain food kind of lecture, that's when I think things take a turn, and it's, you know, kind of a premonition of what is to come, what the whole like theme of the day will be, which is like Richard knows best. And the last thing I would say about that scene at Luke's, like as they're sitting there, is that Luke, like, she goes up to him to say, can I get a half of grapefruit so I can shut my dad up, basically. And he's like, I've never had grapefruit. And he offers to go over to the store and buy a grapefruit for Lorelai so that she can like appease her dad. And it's just like, who would do that? Like, honestly, who would do that?
Yeah.
Like,
if you need,
it's kind of incredible, but also like mind blowing at the same time.
Yeah. If she's still, how can she possibly still not realize that he's in love with her? Like, why else would you do that for somebody? I mean, Dosey's is just next door, but still.
But he's like running a diner.
Yeah, and it's busy.
You know? He's just leaving. He doesn't really get along with Taylor that well either.
Yeah.
That's going to be a conversation probably.
Like, why are you here buying one grapefruit? And Lorelai could have gone and gotten one. I don't know. I think we also get kind of another glimpse of why Richard is so stir crazy. It's because he still wakes up at 5:30 a.m.
Yeah.
So then by like 7 o'clock in the morning, he's done all of his morning routine stuff. And then it's just like, you have the whole day just yawning out in front of you. Like, just sleep in, Richard. Just sleep in until 7 and things will be better.
The scene also ends with the same line that you pointed out when he was talking to Emily. He observes Lorelai as well on her, I believe it was 3rd cup of coffee, and says, that's a lot of coffee first thing in the morning. So like mother, like daughter in a sense here.
It's true. So we'll come back to Richard and Lorelai, but we go to Chilton, and Paris accosts Rory as she often does. And she has an idea for a story for the Franklin that's going to be like the front page. I forget what she calls it exactly, but like personal interest.
A human interest.
Yeah, a human
story.
interest. Yeah. And it's going to be writing about the seedy underbelly of Stars Hollow, which she believes exists. And she wants to uncover it and have this big, like, expose type of article for the Franklin.
It was such, like, an oddly specific idea that it felt like, where is this coming from? It really felt like the opposite of what I try to tell my students to do. Like, she's going in with the thesis statement, you know, like, there is a seedy underbelly in Stars Hollow, and I will find it, and she's really going in, she's like, she's going to have huge confirmation bias anytime she sees anything in the town. Like, start with a research question first, Paris. Like,
yeah. Like, what is so charming about small town life? Or, you know,
or not.
Is there something we don't know about small town life? You know,
to
anything,
what extent
Paris.
is there? No.
Yeah.
But what if this is also just Paris's way of wanting to hang out with Rory? She didn't want to admit, like, hey, let's hang out after school. So she came up with a really big way to, you know, go to Stars Hollow to hang out.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. She's done similar things in the past. But yeah, this is an excuse to go to Stars Hollow, so we'll hook up back with them again later. We're just jumping back and forth until we get to the evening, I guess. But back at the inn, I commiserated with Michelle so much in this instance. He's just on the phone with a guest saying, I understand. I understand. I understand. And I think I've said it before, but I've worked the front desk of hotels before. And that is half of the job is just being on the phone saying like, yes, I understand. I understand. And trying not to start sounding like passive aggressive or anything because people are just ridiculous.
He's speaking in a very mechanical voice.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess it placates the people because...
Yeah, it's like devoid of
hang
all
on.
emotion, good or bad.
Yeah. He's a pro, what can we say? Then we get the big problem for the day at the inn, which is that their linen delivery hasn't shown up, so they don't have tablecloths or towels for any of the rooms, which is a pretty big deal, especially the towels.
Yeah.
Like, you can't not have towels. So Lorelai, like, very adeptly lists off some solutions for the moment until they can get their linen delivery. And I thought it really showed her, like, we've seen her before as just, like, a really good manager, and this is another instance of that.
Yeah, there's some impressive problem solving. She's just so capable at what she does, which really, like, frames what is to come. I think appropriately, like, we get the evidence. Once again, like, we know Lorelai is good at her job. And so when Richard kind of comes in and subtly and not so subtly, like, undermines her authority and knowledge, I feel like we're very much aligned with Lorelai in this of, like, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Richard does arrive, which is the second problem of the day. He has already taken the tour of town that Lorelai suggested, and he has gone in the cat store at least twice.
Yeah, good job.
And had Babette introduce him to all her gnomes, amongst other things. And he's seen it all. So now he's here to kind of just, like, shadow her even more. And in theory, this could have gone a different way. Like, he could have been there, witnessed what she does, and then admired her. Like, in a way, that's what Emily did, you know, when Emily saw her organize and run the, like, fashion show event. Even though Emily said, like, I told you so, she also had that paired with, like, admiration and respect for Lorelai. But Richard does not have that here. Amongst other things, he brings up the shirt that you nominated for your Lorelai's closet, asking where the jacket is, like you mentioned, and then being like, does your boss mind? And of course Lorelai's like, I am my own boss, and no, I don't mind. And that's just, like, the very beginning of the sort of judgmental comments he makes throughout the workday and after.
Yeah, I thought it was also a very sexist way to start it all off, which I think is kind of an undertone in a lot of his critiques, is he has like this extreme patriarchal kind of persona, and he doesn't even notice that he's doing it probably, but he is undermining all the women specifically in his life. And, like, pointing out, like, critiquing her clothes as the first thing is such a problem that women have to deal with in workplaces, and it's just, like, unnecessary.
I think that's a good thing to point out, the kind of sexism underlying so much of his critiques, because up to this point, when Richard starts to become, like, especially annoying, I was kind of reminiscing on how much I, like, really enjoy Richard, actually. Especially at the start when he was so, like, energized by retirement. I thought it was so funny that he was commenting on, like, Emily moved the vase, Emily got a new haircut, and, like, I don't know, there's so many kind of endearing qualities about him early on in this episode that are quickly overshadowed by the not so endearing. But it's, like, kind of the opposite of what makes him so likable, which is sort of like the grandfatherly lovingness. The flip side of that is, like, paternalism, you know, and the whole, like, condescension of being like, I'm the older masculine figure. You are all, like, my women, and I can, like, guide you and educate you and all these things. And it's like, she doesn't need that. Yeah. She really doesn't. Like, he's really mansplaining, to use a more contemporary term, how to run an inn, when it's like, she knows how to do that.
And he
you
doesn't.
weren't even in. Yeah, you were in insurance.
Yeah. He has no idea how to do customer service. He talks with clients, yes, but that's completely different than hospitality work.
Yeah, and it's like his idea of professionalism is what he's trying to impart on her, like how to dress, how to have a phone call, when it's like, you know what worked for you and what was considered acceptable within your own workplace, what got things done, but this is an entirely different world and realm, and someone else's authority and way of doing things, and he just had no respect for that whatsoever.
Yeah, it's disappointing.
I know.
We interrupt this podcast with a message from our sponsor.
There's nothing like a movie night, but who wants to Netflix and chill anymore? Why not go vintage and stop by Stars Hollow Video? When you leave streaming behind, our store is the right one for you, and here's why.
You might have noticed the picture of a young schoolgirl in our window and wondered what that was all about. Well, it's a sign of our newest and most notable store feature, the Rory Curtain. Named after a brave town hero, the curtain separates the regular movies from the morally objectionable ones, according to our town's judgment police, Taylor Dosey.
You can feel safe browsing with your children through reliably sanitized choices like Bambi and Dumbo. Sure, there might not be many more movies now that almost our entire catalog is behind the curtain, but doesn't the surplus of endless choices on Netflix overwhelm you anyways? Here at Stars Hollow Video, not only have we helpfully narrowed your options, we've made your choices about what is acceptable for you.
You might have large concerns about censorship in small towns, but perhaps we can appeal to you with our special offer for listeners of Talking Fast. When you check out with the code NOT2FAST, you will get a buy one, get one 50% off rental coupon, along with a complimentary permanent laminated membership card. Stop by today. Surprisingly though, that wasn't my Friday night dinner, although I could nominate most of what Richard is doing for the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
But what comes next is, so...
Oh, we might have the same.
Oh no. So we pick back up with Rory and Paris, and they've just gotten off the bus, and Paris is going on about how she feels like gritty, you know, like she's dirty now or something. And my Friday night dinner is like the very obvious classism that's happening here.
Yeah.
And I think also, like, you can never separate classism from racism because they're always connected, especially in American life. And she's looking for this seedy underbelly, which really what she means by that is, where's the poor part of town? Where's the poor part of town? And where's the part of town where the most people of color are likely to live?
Joke's on you, Paris. You're not going to find that in Stars Hollow.
And once she finds that, then of course she's going to find the place with the most crime and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just like, Paris, I so much of what she's doing is funny because of her intensity and her like misguidedness, but it's also just like, I wish Rory probably doesn't recognize what's happening, but I wish she would call Paris out on it. Like, she calls Paris out by saying that there is no seedy underbelly, but I don't think she understands. Neither of them understand what the implications of that are.
And Paris had started out, when she was explaining her idea for the story, she was talking about, like, specifically city slickers, to use her term, moving to small towns for, like, a more peaceful life and the white picket fence and all of that. So in a way, what she was originally talking about, the seediness, almost sounds like, what do they call that? Because, of course, people have to, like, classify it. Like, is that white-collar crime?
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever. She's talking about, like, middle-class people and their secrets and all of that. But then when she arrives, she's, like, it's the more stereotypical assumptions about, like, crime in areas of town and whatnot. So there's, like, mixed messages going on here, but they're all bad.
Yeah.
But to, like, piggyback a bit, I also was picking this as my Friday night dinner critique. Thinking about how sheltered Paris is, truly, classism, like you said. And I'm glad you point out that the, like, part of this isn't, a large part of this is not really called out by Rory in the episode or just the episode in general. But I think, so, like, the extent to which Paris is supposed to be presented to us is, like, rather sheltered and naive and ignorant in this moment, I think, is there, because she has all of these lines that we recognize as really ridiculous. She's saying, like, I think I've got, I mean, it's just so annoying. I almost don't even want to repeat them because it's like I take the bus constantly. Get over it, Paris. But she's like, oh, I've got rabies. I'll have to burn my clothes. There's something crawling in my hair. It smelled. It really took me back actually to the scene with the yard sale when Madeline and Louise were trying on the different donated clothes, and Paris implied that they shouldn't be putting on used clothes because, like, who knows where they've been or they're dirty or whatever. And it just makes me so annoyed by her when overall I usually really love Paris, and she's just got a lot of room to grow, which is part of what can be appealing about a character in the long run. But she's just so freaking sheltered by complaining about public transportation when it's like, I don't, and you're taking the bus to Stars Hollow of all places. Like, get over it.
And she has a car, so
a BMW.
So she's like a prime example of like the people who choose to like be homeless for a week or something to see what it's like, and like experience what other people go through, like as kind of a as an experience and as like an optics moment. Like, this is something I did. Look at how enlightened I am now.
Yeah, it's very like voyeuristic.
Yeah.
And then she's gonna go write an article about it, so like turn other people's experiences into an object that she gets to own. And I mean, I don't think they sell the paper for money, but like she could just make money off of this.
She'll get the prestige.
Yeah, maybe win a prize. And so not cool, Paris, not cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of what she is here for is the comedic effect with what comes next, but it is just like disappointing in Paris. And also, especially with Paris at this point in her character arc, it's totally in line. Like, it's not very surprising, unfortunately. So once they've gotten off the bus, they go into Luke's. Paris is like rushing in there. She goes straight to the bar, and she starts to interrogate Luke about prostitution and drug dealers, which I think is also just like, come on, Paris.
Yeah, this is where like her naivete is funny, because she thinks diners, as she says, are like the hotbed for this stuff. When it's like, the truth could not be, her conception of what a diner is could not be further. Like, truckers in Stars Hollow, she's thinking, it's like, that's not even at all what this place is.
They probably don't even have roads that are graded for semi-trucks.
No, definitely not. They just got a traffic light like a few episodes ago.
That's true. But, so I guess all my moments are kind of loaded into this section right here because I have my Jess sass attack. Oh, do you too?
I do too. This scene as a whole is my Stars Hollow moment.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, but continue.
So I'll just do the Jess sass attack real quick, and then you can take over. So the line I picked, Jess comes down and he's like listening to what Paris is saying, and he says, I'm an innocent boy, or an innocent boy like me shouldn't be raised in an atmosphere like this. I want to be good, but life is not letting me. And he was just like so sincere and sarcastic throughout it, and that was just a great moment. We barely got to see Jess this episode, but it was a great example of his sassiness.
Yeah, that was actually my sass attack as well, because it was such a perfect line. You know, he's so quick. Like, he just walks out and hears Paris immediately say, like, where did he come from? Do you keep the girls up there? Like, again, thinking somehow this is like a den for prostitution. And just like he just thinks a second and plays along and makes a really funny comment to like get under Luke's skin. But as a whole, this scene was my Stars Hollow moment just because it was so fun. So Stars Hollow, yet also paired with like Paris's extreme misunderstanding of Stars Hollow. That was really funny. And Luke's like apprehension of Paris, and it's just like, what is happening? Who is this person? He asks Rory like, how much do you like this person? Because he wants to like yell at her, you know, and Rory says, do what you gotta do. They're all just like tired of Paris. Jess is playing along, and it was just really fun.
Yeah, I loved it. Rory tears Paris out of there before Luke can I don't know, throw something at her. I don't know what he would have done. Probably just continue to be indignant.
Yelled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably Jess would have continued to get involved and it would have devolved into some weirder scene. After this, we head back to the inn really quickly, and so they're still dealing with the missing linen delivery, and Richard comes in and says, there are no tablecloths on the tables, as if Lorelai wouldn't know about this.
Yeah.
And then she gets a call from Manny, the linen delivery guy, and she deals with it well. Like, she obviously has worked with this person for a long time, knows how to talk to them, knows how to get what she needs out of them. And so she negotiates. She is flirty and, kind of double entendres all over the place like we've seen her do before. But the main thing is she gets what she needs for the business, and it's clear that they have this business relationship and it's not just her acting like this to some random person.
Yeah, they have like a rapport. Mm-hmm. And it's her style. Like, would I be so flirty? No. But, like, that's Lorelai. And she's not inappropriate. We don't get the sense that Manny is uncomfortable with it. So it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And we're defending Lorelai, of course, because of Richard's criticism shortly after.
Yeah. So Richard has still been just hanging out. And
the way he's just, like, eavesdropping is so inappropriate.
And he looks at her with this grim, disappointed father face and asks, can I speak to you over here, please? And
like he's gonna ground her.
Like she's a child and he's like asking her to come over to the corner to talk. And he goes off on her about how to conduct a business call and how to be respected by your business associates, I guess, and by your employees. And he's doing all of this, of course, in front of Michelle and a lobby full of people. We don't see their reactions. They might not hear it, but Michelle obviously does. And she's kind of forced to just take it because she is not really because she does recognize what is necessary in a place of business. She knows that she can't blow up at her father at this point because that would be unprofessional. So she just kind of like says, oh, all right. You can tell she's really unhappy about it. And she just kind of takes his criticisms, which are all ridiculous and show that he has no idea what he's talking about in this particular setting. And then Michelle, of course, is having the time of his life watching this in the background.
Yeah. Like, Lorelai really grins and bears it during this conversation, and you have to, like, applaud her for that. She has a lot of willpower, which I don't always associate Lorelai as the one with willpower. Sometimes I think of her as the one who will, like, lash out in an emotion, like the heat of a moment, like, especially with Emily. But she's really, really doing her best to, like, not get into an argument right now or just to even, like, get through the day. Like, she's doing a favor to Richard and Emily right now. And it's like she's getting nothing and nothing back for it except judgment and critique,
After this, he says, now go back to work. I'll be right over there if you need me. He's still talking to a child. Like, I think we've seen this in maybe season 1. I can't remember the exact instances, but we've kind of seen Richard like struggling with the idea of Lorelai as a grown woman who is completely capable in her own life. And this is such a clear example. Like, he still sees her as a little child and can't understand how her mind is working as an adult,
Wow. So, like, that made me think about how maybe there's, like, something to that of him seeing her as a child, because that's, like, when he knew her, when he was involved in her life. And he didn't see her really grow up past 16 or become this professional, capable person. So he's like undermining her, yes, but it's maybe perhaps not just about his belief and his like authority, but also just like him not clearly seeing because he didn't like witness it. Like you normally would see your kid go through like developmental stages and progress as an adult and whatnot. And he is maybe just seeing her at 16 because that's like the last version he knew. And he's still getting accustomed to this current version of Lorelai, which is proving difficult because he's like undermining it actively.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we saw a similar thing with Emily, especially in the beginning, but they've kind of seemed to work past it. Like Emily has kind of come to the realization that Lorelai is a full adult, but Richard is still not there yet.
I think Richard throughout this episode is mirroring a lot of the work that Emily and Lorelai have gone through in earlier seasons. And it's like now that he is retired, he's actually engaging in the family more. Like he has been that more aloof, off in the business world type who hasn't been engaging. And Emily has been doing a lot of that like interpersonal work. And now he's trying and like failing really. And like, I don't know. I think at the end he makes a good point about how he's never been invited by Lorelai ever, and he can't think of a reason she would until now as a favor. But it's also like, have you ever put in that effort either? So,
like, have you ever invited Lorelai to go, I don't know, out to lunch or something, or go to the club for the afternoon? Like it goes.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. But after this depressing scene, we are back around town, and this is my Stars Hollow moment. So Rory and Paris are still going around. Paris is still looking for her seedy underbelly. And Taylor comes up, and he's been looking for Rory because they have something to show her. He's talking about kids these days being all willy-nilly with their clothes and their hair, which I just thought was hilarious because this was like the mid 2000s, which was like the beginning of kind of the emo period, which obviously we don't see at all in Stars Hollow, but
right, like who is he observing where it has like just straight middle part hair?
Yeah, and Lane hasn't even dyed her hair and dyed it back again yet. But they go into the video store and they are presented with the Rory curtain. They've put all questionable titles or things that Taylor and Kirk have decided are potentially questionable behind this curtain, which leaves maybe like a handful of movies out in front. And it seems like they get stricter and stricter as the day goes on. Paris is very excited about this. She starts taking notes and she wants to write her article about small town minds run amok. And Rory, on the other hand, is very upset that she is now the face of censorship in the small town.
Yeah. It was humorous, and it made the earlier scene make a lot of sense to me in a new way. And like, I know it's meant to be funny that Paris starts to like make a story about this, but that's actually like the dark side of Stars Hollow that she is picking up on. Like, there actually is something there that we have discussed of like, oh, it's a bit surveillance-y. Oh, Taylor has a power thing, or oh, they don't allow outsiders in, or all of these like other power dynamics and stuff. And it's like this whole little scene about censoring videos and what Taylor deems to be morally all right for a movie is like, that's actually a story there that we have been telling ourselves.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. I wonder what Paris's story ended up being like, whether it talked about stuff like that or whether it was, I don't know, more sensationalist. I'm sure it was sensationalist. I don't know.
Yeah.
So after this scene where we go to Lorelai and Rory's house, and finally Lorelai has some relief that Rory is back and she can entertain her father. One of the things I noted most about like the entrance here is when Rory takes Richard into her bedroom and I really liked her book organization to start off with, having like secret piles of books. It reminded me a lot of Lane, and it made me wonder whether they've like talked about how to hide. I mean, Rory doesn't have to hide her books, but how to like have all these books and CDs and stuff everywhere.
Yeah, that was actually my Rory's bookshelf, was the literal bookshelf itself and the like innovative and creative ways of storing all of your overflow from your bookshelves. Like I'm constantly getting more bookshelves from like secondhand stores and stuff, and then I still end up with piles of books. Like I don't know where they all come from. I mean, I do. Obviously, I buy them and from the library, but I just really enjoyed her. Like, of course, we know reading is an integral part of her character, but just seeing the like visible evidence of like the different kind of maybe not necessarily eccentric, but like the fact that, yeah, she has them in like a dresser and she has them on the floor by her bed and the bookshelf. And this really throws off Richard, who thinks they should be all like properly stored on shelves and whatnot. And it just shows like Rory's own flavor of reading, her approach to it, and like the way that you store your books actually says a bit about you as a reader. I feel like it's like a personal taste, like alphabet or color, or where do you put them, like all the spines right out, or do you have like little display? I don't know. It's just, I like seeing it, and it made me think about my own book collection, you know, and how
do you organize your bookshelves?
I have like multiple and in different rooms too. I have one dedicated to like nostalgia, so kind of my collections of my YA or kids books, so like Harry Potter, Princess Diaries, Twilight, Hunger Games, Pretty Little Liars, like all of those. Then I have a book of like primary text that I would do research with potentially. Then I have a library book and secondary text shelf. And then my last one is for like my contemporary fun books that I put out in the living room, because I'm like, anyone who visits my house who's just the casual non-academic, those would be the books that they might recognize. But I actually ran out of so much room that my library book and theory like scholarship book is out in the living room too. So if they look at that one, they might be like, oh my gosh, what is this all about?
Intimidated by the like 2,000 page book.
Yeah, like the Norton anthologies are out there, that's for sure. How about you?
Mine is kind of similar. I have like in my office, I have all of my medieval primary sources and secondary sources, and I have like a separate bookshelf just of library books, and they're also now all behind me because I keep getting more.
I know.
And then I have all my like, I guess I also have a couple of shelves of like nostalgia stuff, and then all my fantasy and sci-fi books. And I'm always super proud when I get to put I have all my books that I haven't read laying flat so I can't escape them. And it always makes me very proud when I get to stand another book up.
That's a cool way. Almost like a to-do list.
Yeah.
I usually go by alphabet, but recently my partner and I rearranged my like fun contemporary books for rainbow, which I've never done before. Some people are very judgmental of organizing your books by color because they think that's so like superficial, and like aesthetic over the whole like value of logical or, you know, kind of organization or whatever. And I was like what you like, of course. And if you want your books to look pretty, who cares? Like, they're just books.
Yeah, I agree. I honestly don't have any organization system except to put all books by a certain author together. That's about as far as I go. I do maybe designate a shelf like based on the genre, but that's about it. I'm not very ambitious, but I like the rainbow idea. I've seen some like TikToks and stuff where people have done that, and it always looks so cool. Anyways.
Okay, well, we'll end our Rory's bookshelf tangent. If you can't tell, you know, this is one reason we like Rory at this point, you know, like we identify with this whole reading obsession or life passion, maybe.
But we also see the Harvard wall, which I think is a big thing for Richard. We see like all the different Harvard paraphernalia that they picked up, and Rory explains how they've been collecting it forever. And Richard just kind of tables this for later. He doesn't bring it up with Rory, which is good.
I feel like this shows how like out of the picture Richard has been. Because, like, hasn't everyone heard about their Harvard? Like, Emily's heard about their Harvard obsession. Like, she saw the pictures. It's like, where have you been, Richard? Of course, they love Harvard.
That's so true. He was on a business meeting for that Friday night dinner after their Harvard trip. Mm-hmm. He's got a lot to catch up on. Mm-hmm. So they start to order food. Richard, of course, has more to say about their food ordering habits, which is unappreciated.
Wastefulness and gluttony.
Yeah. Completely unnecessary for a man who has a cook.
And he criticizes them ordering so much, and Lorelai's response is that they like to have choices. And then later on, he criticizes them for only picking Harvard and says Rory needs choices. Yeah. So, it's so hypocritical.
Which one is it, man?
Yeah.
I also liked, it's not wasteful. They were talking about how they eat the leftovers and everything. It's not like they order all this food and toss out everything.
Or eat it all in one night. Like, sometimes it seems like they do, but...
And I guess we have seen them cleaning out the fridge, but that happens to everybody where you just forget about things. Richard then kind of corners Lorelai in the living room, and this is where things really come to a head. He starts talking to Lorelai about how Rory shouldn't be focused on just one school, and he really thinks that she should be considering Yale, of course, because that's his alma mater. I loved, and he was talking about how he can help Rory get into Yale, and who could help Rory get into Harvard. And Lorelai's response was Reese Witherspoon can help with that, and this was a great Legally Blonde callback, which could have been a Rory's bookshelf moment for sure.
Yeah, I think I actually entirely missed that reference. I was so caught up in like the heat of the debate. That's awesome though.
I had just recently been watching like a booktube video of somebody reviewing the Legally Blonde book, so it's on my mind.
I see on TikTok actually Legally Blonde the musical constantly. Oh, yeah. It's really hot right now.
I want to see that.
And I love that musical actually. I haven't seen it in person. I've seen a YouTube recording of it, and I listen to the soundtrack a lot.
Pirating musicals. Okay.
I didn't pirate it. Someone else put it on YouTube. I'm allowed to watch it. I'm going to delete this. I don't want the FBI coming for me. Anywho, I do think like Richard's thing here, it's like kind of when Emily brings up stuff where the thing running behind it is Emily is right, you know, and she wants her way. But she says something that kind of makes sense on top of that. It's like the same thing happening here. Like Richard's really thinking about like, I know it's best. Yale is best. I can make that happen for Rory. But he's saying, like, she should have options. She shouldn't just think about Harvard. Like, Harvard is hard to get into. I can't, like, who's going to help her? Like, that's a legitimate question. And I do actually think she should have choices and options and backup schools, which she does not choose in the end. But it's just like a medium for him to be saying, like, let me make this happen, what I think is right. And it's like getting heated, and then it's interrupted by Dean arriving with the car, which was a surprise to me, actually. I was actually surprised.
Yeah, because when last time we saw this was the episode when he told Rory that he loved her in season 1. Mm-hmm. So it's been ages, which I guess means that he's taken his time working on the car, and that's good. Mm-hmm. Supposedly he built this car. I'm pretty sure he probably just like fixed the motors and stuff, because I don't think he physically built this car from the ground up. I think it had a frame.
It's a surprise, like it seems like a quick time frame for him to complete the car. Like it looks to be in great condition now, and it was like bones before. And I feel like they kind of broke up maybe in spring ish, because they get back together like at the end of the school year, and now it's winter, so like under a year he did all of that for the car, and they were broken up for a time. Was he still working on it, like pining after her?
That's true.
I don't know. It looks good though. Like looking at it, I trust him. It looks like a good car to me, which is the problem of this scene.
Yeah, it's kind of like a nice old vintage looking car.
Retro,
yeah. But he couldn't have picked worse timing, because Richard is not okay with it. And he comes out, and Lorelai and Rory are all excited and ready to go for a drive, but Richard says that Rory can't accept it because why would she accept something that Dean made? It couldn't possibly be safe. And he's just so condescending. Again, he's like setting down his patriarchal foot as if he is the head of this family. No matter what, no matter where he is the one with the last say. And it's just so frustrating because, I don't know, my parents are grandparents now, and I'm sure if I asked them when they feel like they have a say in their grandkids' lives, they would say only if there's an extreme safety problem, like only if the parents can't have a say, basically. And here Lorelai's obviously fine with Rory taking the car, so Richard he can have his opinion, but he should just kind of bite his tongue, I think.
Yeah. What does Richard even know about cars? Yeah, anyways.
Exactly.
You're telling me he's ever worked on cars?
Yeah.
Against all odds, I feel like Dean handles this fairly well. Dean kind of just says, like, I understand where you're coming from. You're concerned for Rory's safety, which I feel like is a very generous reading of Richard's attitude here. And Dean is like, I share that. Like, I want her to be safe. I've worked on cars. My dad has worked on cars. My dad checked this. Gypsy, the mechanic, checked this out. Like, I've kind of, dotted my I's, crossed my T's here. And Richard is not having any of this. And so Dean kind of, like, ups the energy a little bit and kind of is like, he's not really a pushover in this moment. I don't think he's like too aggressive, but he does kind of like challenge Richard here. Like, okay, let's go get it checked out. Like, do you want to drive it? And then they both end up driving their own cars. It gets into a bit of a pissing contest after that, which I don't love. But Dean gets in a good jab about like Richard's Jaguar. And ultimately I felt like I kind of like that Dean was standing up for himself, especially in comparison to how Richard treated him in the first episode of the season, which comes up in a moment. And so much of Richard's judgment of Dean is unfair. It's very classist and whatnot, whereas our judgment of Dean is rooted in valuable points that we make. So I'm glad that Dean could stand up for himself in regard to, Richard's unfair judgment of him.
Yeah, the way he dealt with this reminded me of the first Kiss and Tell episode, I think, when Dean comes over for that movie night when he and Rory have just kissed for the first time, and he tells Lorelai that he needs her to like him. And I remember not really liking that he pulled that out at the time because I didn't feel like it was fully necessary, but at this point, it definitely is, and he is, like, showing his gumption, which, making his opinion heard is not something I think we've ever said he does badly. He does it too much sometimes. But it works out here. So they go to Gypsy's to get the car checked. Richard insists that they check it over again and again, even though Gypsy has already checked it and obviously found nothing wrong with it.
That was so annoying to me. Like, you make this whole point about a mechanic, and then when you go find a mechanic, you also don't trust their expertise statement to you that the car is safe.
Yeah.
And it was very annoying.
I also hated his assertion that because he was paying for the service that Gypsy should do whatever he wanted, like go over it again and again. I think that's such like that happens all the time for people in customer service and things like that, and it's ridiculous. Like, just because you pay for it doesn't give you leave to treat somebody with no respect no respect for their expertise, no respect for their time. It was just uncalled for and just like a classist thing, I think.
Yeah, we've seen this behavior with Emily before. Yeah, you really see it with Richard now that he's finally out in the world.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, he's the same way.
Yeah. They are a pair, I suppose. But I think Dean does a good job again here in this conversation. He kind of confronts Richard, like, I know that you don't have a great opinion of me. And he also confronts Richard for attacking him at that dinner before even...
That was a good full circle
Yeah,
moment.
before even giving Dean a chance. So I thought, yeah, we can give Dean this episode. He does well.
Yeah. So they kind of come to an agreement of sorts. They seem to be on better terms than before. Not friends or anything, but they're less aggressive, at least. And Gypsy arrives and says that, she broke off the windshield wipers just to find something wrong with the car so they'd leave her alone, which I thought was funny. Yeah. And she says, I can't look at this car anymore. I miss my home.
Yeah.
Which is a good example of, this is the first time we're seeing her character, I believe. And I think she's a really fun Stars Hollow member. So I was glad to see her, even though before we did start the podcast, we were talking about how her name is it's a slur. And so we were saying we have mixed feelings about saying her name. It is her name.
Yeah.
It's this is just sort of a caveat to say it's kind of an inappropriate name for a character, even if it's not used as a slur within the context of the episodes ever. And I don't think we would say that would be a good name for a character now or then, but yeah.
And it makes our lives a little bit complicated. We can't bleep out every time we say her name or just not say her name. But on the other hand, if you are a Romany person and you have an opinion about how we should deal with it, or if it's just not something we even need to worry about, let us know. That would be great to hear from you.
Yeah, our ears are open.
Yeah. So after this, we return and Richard approves the car. Dean disappears. And Lorelai finally confronts Richard with what she's been holding in for the entire day. But I fully agree with everything she says here. She talks about how Richard has come into her town and her house and been trying to be the authority and undermining her in front of her employees and making her feel small in her own town and house and life. And I fully agree. I think she is also really reasonable as she's saying all of this. She doesn't fly off the handle or anything. I thought she handled this really well, especially because we have seen her handle other fights much differently. I thought she was very level-headed, and Richard should have listened to her.
Yeah. Yeah, she says, why can't I make you hear me? And it felt so Emily and Lorelai.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And what I appreciate about this conversation as well is the nuance they add when Richard defends himself in response. And like you said, I'm 100% with Lorelai in this conversation, but I do like what they kind of unearth about where Richard is coming from when he admits to the whole how bugged he was that he was invited over as a favor, how he feels like a decrepit old crone or drone at the club at 3 p.m. He feels like an annoyance, a burden. He feels obsolete. I'm just paraphrasing. And he says, I hope you never feel like this. And I just like that because it unpacks where he's been coming from, perhaps why he's been lashing out. Partially, I think he has underlying issues about the way he views himself as the patriarch, like we've explained. But yeah, so I guess I liked that he explained that. But that is the reason, it's not the excuse. Yeah. He made Lorelai feel bad because he's feeling bad, really, is the thing. And so it's thanks for explaining where you're coming from, but it doesn't justify your actions throughout the entire episode. But it does continue his storyline that is a longer arc that I think we'll track, that we've been tracking, of how it seems this grappling with his identity as a retired person is bringing out the worst in Richard, and it's something he really needs to overcome, and there should be more apologies down the line.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I think it's really a pattern with how he, as you said, when he feels bad, he tries to make other people feel bad, because that's exactly what he did to Emily, during the debutante ball episode, when he was just under or demeaning her at all times, just because he felt bad in his own job. It's such a clear pattern. I don't know how he can't recognize it or how nobody has brought it up to him before, because it's not like, I mean, everybody has patterns in how they deal with things, but hopefully over time you start to recognize the patterns. But I think he just does like zero introspection. And but I agree. It is, everything he's saying is sad, and I understand where he's coming from, but he does need to apologize for what he's done.
We have 2 scenes after this. The episode is pretty much over. But we find Rory coming home. She was, sent out so that Richard and Lorelai could have this argument. She was sent out to pick up their Chinese food. And so she's making her way home, and she runs into Jess for a fun little scene, maybe to just throw in Jess more, which I appreciate. She's like looking at the video store, which has put up this like class photo of her on a podium practically. And she's like grimacing, hating this. I'm totally with her. She's like, where did they get this picture? Why are they doing this to me? And Jess is kind of making fun with her, trying to point out how it's a funny situation. And he talks about like, if you start burning books, they'd probably make you mayor. And he alludes to like a prank that he's done. He says he doesn't think the picture will be up much longer. And at first I thought this was implying like, when he knocked over the other person's snow man. But so I was like, are you going to like break in and like destroy
that'd be
the property or something?
Another line.
Which would be intense. Yeah. But she bribes him with an egg roll to come back to explain more. And he says, I might have made a surprise for whoever rents Dumbo and Bambi. So did he like switch some movies? Which is kind of like, if you put like an R-rated horror movie and a child is about to just go watch Dumbo, a little scary. But overall, I like that he's supporting Rory with his antics, kind of.
I'm glad also that Jess wasn't actually breaking in, because I think that would have been crossing a line. That would be a big deal.
We can only have so much, forgiveness for him.
It's true. So after this fun scene, we get just kind of a culmination of Richard's emotional state. He goes back home. Emily is cheerful. She's had a great day. And it just kind of drives home the fact that she enjoys her life better when he's not around all day, which I'm sure is really painful.
Yeah.
And he makes an excuse and just kind of goes into his study and sits down and just looks dejected and sad.
Very morose. Yeah. He's under like a single lamp light in the big chair, and it fades to black. And to be continued, really, I think, about his storyline. It makes me think, like, does he open up that business with Jason soon? Like, I know that's to come. And I just didn't think it was going to be so soon. So there must be something else, or is this put on the back burner then picked up again? I felt like that was season 3 or something. I don't know. We'll see. But
that must be season 3, because there's other stuff that happens with Lorelai in between now and then. I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, we will. Well, all right.
Yeah.
It was good to be back for the second half of season 2. And looking forward to more.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end.
Don't forget to join us on all platforms and email us your gazebo moments or thoughts or your 30-second recaps just for funsies to talkingfastpodcast@gmail.com. And see you next time.
Yeah, talk to you next time.